Welcome to this explainer on operating Cisco routers. We're calling this one Solving the Enterprise Puzzle. Now listen, today we are absolutely not going to sit here and read through some dry, dusty technical manual together. No way. Instead, we're going to treat enterprise networking like a massive, high-stakes jigsaw puzzle that's just waiting to be solved. If you've ever stared at a rack full of blinking networking gear and wondered how on earth it actually moves data across the globe, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's dive right in. Right off the bat, I want to start by asking you a question. Picture this, you've just unboxed a massive $5,000 piece of hardware, a brand new Cisco Enterprise Integrated Services router. You bolt it securely into the server rack, you plug that heavy power cable into the wall, you flip the switch, stand back, and wait for the magic to happen. So what do you think happens next? The answer? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Zilch. Unlike your home Wi-Fi setup, the one that practically sets itself up with a couple of taps on your phone, an enterprise router is a complete blank slate. Out of the box, it essentially has a blank brain. It's doing absolutely nothing until we come in and tell it exactly how to behave. Without our intervention, this multi-thousand-dollar machine is, well, it's basically just a very heavy, very expensive paperweight. It won't route a single IP packet. We call this the plug-and-play myth. Okay, so before we can even think about the software side of things, we have to solve the physical puzzle. And we aren't just plugging in a single power cord like you would with your home router. We are meticulously connecting arrays of RJ45 copper cables to LAN switches, or setting up serial links with CSU/DSUs for our wide area networks, or maybe we're carefully routing fragile fiber optics using specialized SFPs. It's just a completely different beast. And this physical infrastructure is a massive leap from those simple all-in-one Soho routers you probably have sitting on your desk at home. So we've got this powerful device. It's bolted into the rack and it's physically cabled up. But here's the next piece of the puzzle we've got to figure out. There is no monitor port on this thing. There's no keyboard attached to it. So how do we actually talk to it? How do we tell this blank brain what to do? Well, since plugging in a monitor is out of the question, we need a way to get inside the router's head. We do this by connecting a specialized console cable straight from our laptop into the router's console port. From there, we use a terminal emulator program to access the Command-Line Interface, or the CLI. This text-based interface is our primary window into the router's logic. You type a command, you hit enter, and the device talks back to you with text messages. Now, once you're actually staring at the CLI, you'll immediately hit a strict hierarchy. First up, there's user mode. You'll know you're there because you'll see a little greater than symbol next to the router's name. User mode lets you look around, but you really can't break anything. To actually solve our puzzle and change things, we need to type the enable command. That unlocks enable mode, which gives you a # prompt. This is the privileged arena. This is where the real power lives, and it's where we can finally start configuring the device. Okay, great, we're in. We've got power, we have our physical cables hooked up, and we have our CLI access locked into enable mode. But wait a second, why isn't the router moving any network packets yet? Seriously, if you check the network right now, traffic is at a dead halt. Why? Well, because the router's network ports are essentially fast asleep. Even with the power on and our console connected, our puzzle is still missing some absolutely crucial pieces. If we run a quick check on our interfaces using a basic show command, we'll see their status listed as administratively down. Now, don't panic, this is not an error. Cisco actually designed these ports to be disabled by default on purpose, purely for security. Think of it like a locked door. If a port hasn't been configured yet, it has absolutely no business being active on your network. So to wake them up and get that beautiful up status, which means both the physical layer and the data link layer are finally working, we have to jump into configuration mode. First, we manually turn the interface on using the no shutdown command. Then we have to assign it a unique IPv4 address and subnet mask. This step is a total game changer because we are finally giving our router an identity on the network. Without that IP address, it literally can't participate in the conversation at all. All right, the interfaces are awake, the lights are green, and they have IP addresses. But here's the multi-million-dollar question. How does a router actually know where to send your data? Now that the hardware is up and running, we are officially transitioning from solving the physical puzzle to solving the logical puzzle of the network layer. To really wrap our heads around this logical puzzle, let's use a perfect real-world analogy. Think of the network layer exactly like the postal service. Just like your local post office sorts mail based on zip codes, the router inspects the destination IP address on every single packet it receives to figure out its ultimate destination. But how exactly does it know which way that destination is?
Well, it makes these decisions using the IP routing table. I like to think of the routing table as a giant set of freeway signs. These signs tell the router exactly which exit, meaning which physical interface, each packet should take to get closer to its final stop. Now, the router automatically builds some of these signs for the networks it's directly connected to, because it already knows about those. But for distant, remote networks, that's where we step in and configure static routes to point the way.
Once those freeway signs are built, the router kicks off a 5-step routing process. And it does this like a rapid, well-oiled machine. At blistering speeds, it does this. 1. It receives the data link frame. 2. It unpacks or de-encapsulates the IP packet hidden inside. 3. It reads the IP address and checks its freeway signs to choose exactly where to forward it. 4. It packs it back up into a brand new frame. And 5. It transmits it out the correct interface. And it does all of this in a fraction of a millisecond. It's wild.
It really is an incredible symphony of logic. But here is a terrifying question for you to ponder. What happens if the router's memory suddenly goes completely blank again? I know, it sounds like a total nightmare, but if the facility loses power, or if the router gets rebooted right now, all of our hard work solving this puzzle just vanishes instantly into thin air. Why does that happen? It happens because every single command we've typed so far went directly into the active running config, which lives in volatile temporary RAM. It's exactly like typing out a massive 10-page Word document, but forgetting to hit save before your computer battery dies. Brutal, right? So, to make our puzzle permanent, we have to manually save our work. We do this by copying the running config over to the permanent startup config, which lives safely in non-volatile NVRAM. Only then is our network actually safe from a power outage. Okay, finally, we need to verify that our completed puzzle actually works. We don't just tape some commands and walk away hoping for the best. We have to act like end users. We fire off ping commands to test end-to-end connectivity, proving that our digital post office is successfully delivering the mail. We use traceroute to map out the exact path our packets are taking across the network. And we run a show IP interface brief to check our interface statuses one last time. When those pings come back successful, that's when you know for sure the puzzle is solved, the network is alive, and all that hard work paid off.
So we've mastered the basics today. We've connected the physical cables, we've manually built the road signs, and we've solved the logical puzzle for a static network. But I'm going to leave you with this one provocative thought. We built static road signs. What happens if a bridge goes out? Seriously, if a network link fails tomorrow, a static router won't have a clue what to do. It's just going to keep blindly sending traffic towards a broken bridge. Next time, we're going to explore how the router learns new paths dynamically entirely on its own. Until then, keep learning and keep solving those puzzles.